New for 96. With your hosts, Kevin McCauley and Chris Nguyen.
Do they have half price anywhere else in the country? Is it only in Texas?
I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, it's just like a discount book store.
Is this in the show, really?
It's in the show. This is what I'm
Why
wondering.
are people listening? Why are people
want
listening?
to know. We've gotten many letters about this, about whether or not there's a half-price books in their area.
It's the podcast about nothing.
My God.
Why are people listening to it? Because it's on the podcast.
I'm rewatching that too, but I'm reluctant to admit that I'm rewatching Seinfeld. It's good car spotting though. Speaking of like 90s TV shows.
Yeah, well, there's always that CRX.
There's the CRX, and behind
Isn't there
it
always
is the Legend.
a Starion?
There's a Starion, which I assume is like a production member's like car, because it's used like in multiple places, multiple scenes. But yeah, that iconic like Santa Monica.
Is that Starion? It must be in New York.
No, because it appears in like the set scenes, like
okay.
when they're like walking across the street or at Yankee Stadium.
See. Okay, I'm mixing stuff up.
Yeah, no, but the CRX is in there. So in that scene, the same scene that they loop every single time they show the front of Jerry's apartment, it's a CRX and it's an Acura Legend, and the car that passes by is an LS 400. Like,
ooh,
it's a nice little like Japanese, I guess,
vignette
set, scenery.
Mm-hmm.
But I just watched the dealership episode.
That's a classic.
That's a good one. And
the rust proofing,
the rust
undercoating.
proofing.
We don't even know what that is.
When Putty is trying to like spite him by like saying that, well, all we have left, or we can only give you the yellow car at this price, and he balks at it. But the yellow car would be cool now. Like that's the car that you'd want to have.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he wanted to get a black one. That's such a weird like. I wonder what the rationale was, because he already had a Saab 900, and then I've already forgotten why he had to get rid of it. Like something happened to it. Oh, Kramer filled like the radiator with blood to keep it going.
What?
I think it ruined the car because he was. Man, in order to explain this, I have to go down like the story rabbit hole.
Okay, I have seen every episode 900 times, and I have no idea what you're talking about.
When Kramer...
Is this a bit?
No. When Kramer takes his blood out of the blood bank because there are too many fees, and they're like the whole bit is that like it's like a regular bank, only it's a blood bank, and so he withdraws his blood and keeps it at home, and then his power goes out. Or like all their power goes out or something like that. And so he has to take it back to the blood bank. And while driving to the blood bank, he borrowed Jerry's car, and it starts overheating. And like the car
totally
stops.
Normal.
Yeah, the car stops and the radiator's like bone dry. Or the coolant tank, I guess, is dry. So he puts blood in it. This is the one where like the like geriatric personal trainer.
Geriatric.
Yes, geriatric, if you will, like ties him to the back of the car. Do you remember this? I'm explaining. The rabbit hole goes too far, and none of it makes sense when you recount it.
Mandelbaum?
Yeah.
Okay.
Seinfeld never makes sense when you try to explain it in bits. It has to like build up like from the beginning of the episode. It's like Frasier. You can't explain any of the bits like out of sync.
And yet I won't stop trying.
I know. You've been on. You were sending me, like you contribute to a Frasier Facebook group. By the way, first of all, you're on Facebook.
I don't post. I'm not on Facebook.
It's too late. We don't have to. I'm not going to continue this story and defame us further with this.
I give them to my sister, and she posts them.
Oh my God. This is a lot, but you didn't let me finish.
I think it's called Frasier Sherry Posting is the group.
That's a deep cut. So I don't know why we're like stuck in this like 90s loop too, because you were texting me about Caroline in the City the other day
I had 12 tabs of Caroline in the City open.
defame us. And I'm talking to you about Melrose Place and like the Aaron Spelling shows. And how like 90210 has far better cars. In fact, the only car that I can remember in Melrose Place is one of the main characters drives a Ford Escort, like an 80s Ford Escort. It's terrible.
Well, I watched half of the pilot of 90210.
Yeah? Well, the best part is the beginning when they pull up to the school.
cars.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, and it's like they're all like period cars. There's even a G-body, even though
it's a Targa.
It's a Targa, and at that time it would have been kind of I don't know if it would have been like a passé car, because I think it was 92 when that started airing.
No, it was 1990.
Oh,
and
so
like,
yeah, okay, that would have.
So and like a 964 probably was like barely available when they filmed.
Yeah, and there were no. I don't know when the Targas were introduced.
Right.
Not that it matters, but they were good cars. There's Kelly's E30.
That 944 S2 cab was really like front and center.
Yeah. So it's throughout the whole series. Matthew Perry drives a G-body Targa when he appears as a spoiled rich kid on the show, and he races Luke Perry in his 356.
This is the 5th time we've talked about this.
I know, but it's worth bringing up because you won't rewatch the show.
First of all, I've never seen it, so it would not be a rewatch.
I don't know. I can't confirm that. This is like the episode where Jerry denies watching Melrose Place.
Oh my gosh!
Actually, that is exactly
we are in a loop.
That's what got me. Like, I'd never seen the show before, and I watched that episode recently, and I don't know why it just like moved me to watch the show, but I started. Now I told you that I was going to stop because it was so ridiculous, but I can't stop now.
You said it was too steamy.
It's very steamy. It's very steamy. Well, 90s steamy, I guess.
What does that mean?
I don't know. They're showing like, people. They're showing neck, ankle.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So nothing like the full-on nudity that you see on CBS
flipping the shoulder
nowadays.
pad down just a little.
Yeah. My God. Anyways, how are you? Welcome to another episode, by the way. We always forget to introduce the podcast of New for 96. Okay.
Let's
well,
clap.
Who's the one that's out of
up.
sync now?
We're
supposed to harmonize. This is terrible.
You know that only works better in person.
This is why I had to quit our a cappella group.
You were kicked out.
Yeah, whatever. I was trying to think of a clever name for our what would our car like the straight pipes.
This is worth exploring.
The straight pipes, except that would be ironic if I was in that.
That would be. Let's be real, Annie. If any of us were in it, it would be ironic.
Yeah. We welcome reader submissions for what our car capello group would be. The exhaust notes. Exhaustive notes.
Exhaustive notes. I like that.
Yeah. It's a lot of car sound related themes we could go with here.
Man, I have nothing.
God. The Pop and Crackles. I don't know. I feel like that's an actual one.
Oh, I'm sure it is.
Yeah. That's all we got.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening. So we've been on a hiatus for a little bit, for the last little over a month now. We could also call it like that we just wrapped up season 1 of New for 96 at 53 episodes, 52 episodes, and now we're starting season 2.
I like that. That's canon now.
Yeah, so we're at S2E1.
Mm-hmm.
And for a period, I think we felt like it wasn't contributing to things going on in the world to release this noise that you're hearing now, this distraction. And so here we are, back again.
Yes.
Hoping to provide distraction for those who need it, want it.
Whether or not they want it.
Yeah. So there you have it. How are you, Kevin? I saw you yesterday, so this is facetious.
Yeah.
I don't actually care.
I know. I mean, yeah. The interval of time we see each other is not dependent on whether or not you care.
That is true.
You never care.
No. All of our cars in the last month or so have all basically crumbled to dust.
Mine, literally 3 out of 4 have broken.
Yeah.
And the only one that hasn't is the Lexus with 200,000 miles.
Yeah. Once again, this is the logical choice we should have made long ago because we already have other stressful cars. There's no need to add to that by having an additional interesting but also like life ruinous car as a daily driver if you don't need it. Although I'm sure I'm going to fuck that up pretty soon too by replacing the Land Cruiser with something. I've already had it for 4 months now.
700 miles.
700 miles, 4 months. I'm actually surprised that I even drove 700 miles, like considering that I've left my house. We're still in Corona. Well, you and I are in kind of Corona quarantine still, but we live in the state of Texas that we're one of the first to open back up, and we are now. Anytime you listen to like a news story, Texas is being used as an example of, look at those guys. We're becoming like Florida. We're next to Florida, I think. In this whole thing.
We are totally Florida.
We're Florida manning this. This is not ideal, but
yeah. I mean, we've all relaxed a little. I mean, the threat has not gone down, but I think it's just like fatigue. You know, we've seen each other. I've seen some family.
Yeah.
But I mean, I would not want to like go to a concert or public event or anything in the next year.
No.
You know, or even I don't even want to fly this year if I can help it.
Yeah, I know. So we'll
then I'll get some invite, and then I'll be like, well, I'm flying.
I can't. I can't imagine myself like flying this year if I don't have to. So we'll see. We have Luftkult in theory in November, right? Is it November?
Yeah,
it's November. Which you may road trip.
I might road trip in the Aviator just to like. It could be fun. Honestly, like Luftkult in these conditions doesn't sound very fun, but maybe I'll be singing a different tune in November. Who knows?
The thing is that like, I mean, maybe it's better that this year is meant to be spread across several days because then they can figure out smaller attended like group controlled events or something. I don't know. As opposed to like one big event, because I can't imagine Luftkult being as enjoyable if like it was a 25% capacity. You had 25% of the cars and 25% of the attendees. Like that seems like a parking lot car show, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. We shall see. I'm also, I mean, like I feel a little bit of apprehension about like going to a festival of any kind.
Totally.
So
totally.
We shall see. I mean, they're unless people are posting from like old events, it seems like people are holding like small shows, small events of sorts.
Local PCA had like a concourse.
Oh, really?
I believe so.
The same one that you attended like when you first got to SC?
Yeah, well, this was in Kima.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I guess it was the same one because it was like the same.
Yeah.
Early June.
You had no chance trying to beat that brand new Macan.
I know
that got that won the concours event.
Well, also I had no chance because I entered in the Macan class, so that was a big mistake because it was going to be tough to beat actual Macans. I had a replica Macan.
That is true. It was a car cover. It was a badge. Yeah. That was, I can't believe it was like 4 years ago. I actually thought that was like 2 years ago, but it was when you first got the car.
It must have been 3 years ago. It was like 2017.
Okay.
I talked to Kevin Ricci, our friend, because he like judges those.
Oh, he does? I didn't know.
Yeah, because he won like overall with his 964.
Yeah.
I mean, not over. I don't think overall, but won his class. Like, and so he's like, he's good with the organizers, and he's a judge. So that's pretty cool. You know, he knows a lot about the detail stuff, and he and I were chatting about it. So it's funny, but yeah, we were kind of complaining about the people that enter a brand new car into it.
That is so ridiculous.
It is.
I mean, I guess it's hard to form rules around like a cutoff year. Maybe not. I mean, like just not something that has airbags. Oh no, that's not true. That cuts out like 964s and beyond. But
yeah,
I don't know. I just that is, but it's not even that. Like, I mean, if you had like a first like a 996.1 that was just pristine, like that'd be kind of cool to see. But like if actually,
but it's a PCA Concorde, and PCA is like fueled by like the people that buy brand new cars.
I know.
And show them off.
I'm like mentally trying to like see where I'm comfortable like cutting it off as far as like an acceptable enthusiast for that type of event. I mean, like I actually think it would be kind of cool to see like a first gen Cayenne Turbo, like that's pristine, because those are all trashed now.
Is it weird? But like I think if you had like a brand new like 911 or a GT3 Touring in like a cool spec that you don't see every day, I think that'd be interesting to enter just as like how well it was spec'd, maybe.
Maybe, but Concours is about like preservation, isn't it?
Yeah, but like again, this is PCA Concours, so PCA is about like brand new cars, like is what fuels this organization.
Yeah, that is. You have to kind of suck up to that crowd, I suppose.
So like among brand new cars that are going to be entered into a ostensibly preservation based show, I think, you know, if there is a reason to display it because of its spec or configuration in some way.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that one that we went to that few years ago, I think they had like GT3s and maybe a 911R. Although that might have been in the showroom.
Yeah, I think those were just kind of around.
Yeah, but they got ribbons anyways. They didn't even enter. They're fine. They're fine, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, what do we got on the docket here?
I was just going to say those exact words.
My God. All right. Oh, this is a question that I had posed years ago, which is to say weeks ago when...
It was a while ago.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So if you could choose a different first car, how would that have affected who you are as a car person today?
Well, I thought about this when you posited it, and it's...
What is your first car to state it?
So, first car, 1995 Ford Probe GT. I knew, like...
That was the best probe.
It was the best probe. It was a V6. It was just like yours. It was a 2.5 V6, just like your sub.
Cranking out a hard 170.
Oh yeah,
HP?
164.
Damn.
Not even 170, 164. Wow. Although it had 160 torque, which was pretty good. Pretty good. And yeah, like all of my friends. So I was like basically the first among my friends to get a car.
Yeah.
Because I was a little older, I guess. I don't know. They all had spring birthdays.
You were like Steve Buscemi in Hello, Fellow Kids.
Do you know that in that shot he is holding two skateboards?
No, that just makes
He,
it
Steve,
so much
Steve
better.
Buscemi he is holding a skateboard, and then he has another skateboard over his shoulder. And I just learned this like a few months ago. It's
No, I had no idea.
incredible.
That is
It's
amazing.
incredible. It's incredible. So I had this Pro GT, and all of my friends went on to get Hondas, and I helped them wrench, and we installed turbos and did engine swaps and stuff like that with my friends. It's easy when it's your friend's stuff, and you can just come and like help a little.
Yeah.
But so I always kind of envied how like I understand the Honda tuning scene because it's all very versatile, but also it's like you have such a reliable base that you can like futz with it and not really worry about like the core stuff breaking.
Yeah.
Like I think that was what I understood was such a good thing about those cars. And so for me to have a car that had no aftermarket support and that was orphaned, I mean, it was discontinued.
Kidding me? The JC Whitney catalog was rife with things you could have added to your probe. Many Ford branded add-ons.
No, I disowned the Fordness, and I believe like I like touted it as a Mazda, but yeah, it was. I think it stuck with me that I never wanted another car that was orphaned and that was discontinued, that was had no support. Every car I've had since has been like a timeless car that is still in production. Even if I didn't get the newest version, I would get a version like of a car that is like a legendary nameplate, like the Nissan Z or Porsche 911 or the Boxster is still in production, or the Lexus IS still in production.
Yeah.
So I think it did subconsciously affect my car decisions after that.
Yeah.
For a long time. So does that answer the question?
Yeah, kind of.
Yes.
I mean, like, do you think that if you ended up with that car, what else were you looking at?
I don't think I was looking at anything else.
Whoa.
Right. Okay. So I did have 2 flirtations with other cars.
Yeah.
So when I did look at the Focus ZX3, which was the hatchback, like the first like 99, 2000 Focus.
So would this have been a brand new car instead?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And I looked at that, and I think I test drove it, but it would have been very slow and probably not as fun. Maybe it would have been fun. They actually like benchmarked the E46 on the suspension tuning on those.
Oh, really? No, I had no idea.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. But I don't know. I also looked at like after, so this wouldn't have been my first car, but after I had my Pro for like a year, I was like, it's like I have some mechanical problem. I really need like an Impreza 2.5 RS, and
my God.
test drove one and blah blah, but it was not meant to be. But
do you think that you potentially could have headed down like the path of Japanese cars, being like Japanese car centric?
I don't know. Like, it depends, because I always loved BMWs and Ferraris and European cars.
Yeah.
So I would have always, I think, ended up there just to try it.
Yeah.
Like I don't know. Yeah, it's hard to say. When I was my second car, so I bought my second car exactly 10 years after buying my first car.
Yeah.
Because of living in New York, so I didn't have a car for a few of those years. And I was looking at a GTI and a Cooper S and a 350Z. And the 350Z won out, and I'm glad I did, just because it was like it was a higher tier of performance.
Yeah.
And
that's a lot. Yeah, you get a lot more for your money with a Z, even though, I mean, the GTI is amazing. The Cooper, the supercharged.
Yeah.
Yeah, would have been amazing too. Those have been
Yes.
life ruinous to maintain, like perhaps at the time that you bought it.
Right, yeah, like when I was like 26 or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably. But yeah, the Z was also like, I did track days and stuff, and I think it was more fulfilling as a car because of the platform and everything.
Yeah.
But I do, to this question, I'm answering on behalf of our friend. I always think about Daniel Sloan, frequent guest on the show,
Yeah.
and how he I think he had like a Nissan Maxima, and then he was looking at E30s, and like went down this BMW road because he had that E30 and it's a great car. And I just never did. I just never I never considered anything old. Like that E30 was probably like
I didn't
16 years old when
either.
it was probably a 16-year-old car. It was probably as old as he was when he bought that E30.
Yeah. Was yours a manual also or auto?
Yeah, all my cars were manual until I bought the Prius.
Okay. Yeah, I agree. Like, I wish at the time I had considered vintage cars because there were so many good, hindsight, of course, now, but like there were so many good options that would have been like the same price or cheaper at the time. And it just never occurred to me. Like, I went the opposite approach, which was like the newest and nicest that I could get for the budget.
Absolutely. I mean, that's what I did too, up until basically buying the Boxster.
Yeah. So my first car was a 1995 Saab 900 SE V6. This was the more expensive option to the turbo. The turbo was faster.
Could you get an SE could you get a V6 without it being the special edition?
Yeah, so you get an S V6, but in 94 only. So
that is so nerdy. Like, that is such a granular, nerdy, like,
these are important
fact.
things. First-year cars are usually very different configurations, like the 330i E90, 1 year only.
Yeah.
So I would say that led me down a very specific path too, and I don't regret owning it. It was, I will say, perhaps the least reliable car that I have ever owned, and I've owned several unreliable cars at this point.
What? Can I interrupt you? What was the mileage when you bought it and sold it?
Oh man, I don't remember. I think I bought it at 50,000 miles, I want to say, and sold it 2 years later at...
2 years was it?
2 years was it, because it was that bad. Like, because I was going to college, and like my parents were helping me out with college and the car was costing as much as like tuition. Like, it was bad. Like, everything was going wrong that could have gone wrong with that car, including the steering column snapping and the steering wheel spinning freely while I was driving down the freeway. There was... I
mean, to be credit, like, with the torque steer and where the engine was positioned on that car, I imagine the steering sprung freely without swung freely without any reaction often.
And this wasn't even like... So I was the opposite of you in that I was obsessed about like finding my first car, and I had like a document that had a list of all the cars that I wanted to look for in my price range, and it was everything from like an E36 318 most likely to like an Acura Vigor, or like down to a Volvo 850.
I want to be clear. I did lots of research, but I just didn't. My horizon, like my scope, was not much wider, and I didn't. Like, for example, I did not consider anything like European because my dad had a BMW, which was already ruinous at this point, and it was like 4 years old. So I was like, if I had like an 8-year-old BMW, it would be impossible.
I'm surprised that my parents like even let me get a European car, because I remember when I was looking at the Saab, my mom kept telling me about my cousin who had bought a brand new 900, the old generation, or first generation 900, and it was just like the worst. And she kept calling it. She came up with Saab story.
Oh,
she invented it.
That was her. That's certain. Incredible.
And we bought it, and like straight away, like it had like a broken transmission mount. And we couldn't figure it out. And the next week, it needed like it had a. I think it needed a timing belt or something. I forget what it was, but it was like a 4-digit service straight off the bat. And at the time I was 17, so this was all on my parents. And so they're already regretting letting me get this thing. And we had I almost ended up with, so I test drove a few things. I actually test drove an XV10 as well, a V6 XLE.
Whoa.
A fine, but uninteresting to me as a 17-year-old vehicle. And I would test drove, test drove so many different terrible cars that I'm glad I didn't end up with. And I regret not ending up with a car that I kind of wish I'd gone with instead. So the Saab was interesting, and it led me down the path of my love of quirky cars, not because they were good cars, but because they were just a little bit different. Same, I have had, and I still have a love for Volvos, but for a long time, I went down the path of really wanting to get a Volvo to replace the Saab. And I think that would have been just as troublesome, because it would have been, my dad had an 850 turbo, and my mom had a 740 GLE. I think it was the 4-cylinder version, and both of those cars were just awful to own, and they just swore never again. In fact, I'm talking to my mom right now about she's still looking for a CUV of some kind, and I'm suggesting the XC60 is pretty nice, and she's just traumatized by Volvo ownership.
Oh yeah, my parents would be too, and also my dad is never allowed to buy another BMW.
Well, his engine had to be replaced.
But that was under warranty. But then, he replaced everything else, out of warranty later.
Do you remember the coworker I was telling you? It's all relative, right? He had a Volvo C30, and he considered it to be a very reliable car because it only had to have the engine replaced once. But anyways, I almost ended up with the E36 318 IS. And even though that's kind of a slightly dog of an engine, I think that would have given me much more of an appreciation for rear-wheel drive. And it was a manual too.
Okay. I was going to say, because in auto, that would be brutal.
Yeah. And the Saab was an auto. Okay, so this is how bad this configuration was. I think the V6 was out of an Opel. It was rated 170 horsepower, 167 torque.
Whoa.
It was 0 to 60 in 7.2, I would think it was. If you had the manual. If you had driver, and if you had the manual.
Oh, okay.
If you had the auto, which I did, it was 0 to 60 in 9.5.
Whoa.
Wow. The discrepancy between those figures is astronomical. So it was slow, it used gas, it broke down all the time, but I still liked that it was just kind of different. But anyways, I think the E36 probably would have been just as troublesome to own, maybe safer since the steering column probably wouldn't have snapped free on that one. But I think I would have had more of an appreciation for how our car drove sooner. And it's honestly the reason why I ended up with a Prius in 2000, and that was the first car I bought as an adult with a salary. Because the car that I replaced the Saab with was a brand new Protege 5, because my parents were done with helping me pay for a European car, so they wanted something reliable. And the Protege was actually, to this day, probably the most reliable car I've ever owned. I think I replaced a light bulb, and that was the only thing I ever replaced in 6 years and 80,000 miles of ownership.
Wow.
And it was a manual. It was my first manual. And it was a great car. I kind of wish if it were possible just to keep all the cars that I've ever owned in a barn. I would kind of love to do that. Although I have to say the Protege 5 is not aged as well as my memory, my mind's eye thought it had. Because I saw one on the road the other day, and it really does. It looks like an early 2000s hatchback. It doesn't have that kind of aggressive look that I remember it having, with the kind of rally bumper and fog lamps and like huge at the time, 17-inch wheels. Maybe there were 16s.
Yeah.
I don't remember, but anyways,
I think they might have been 17s.
there might have been 17s.
Maybe, I don't know. Yeah, I know. I remember those. They were cool.
Yeah. But part of the reason why I bought that Prius wasn't because I thought it was like going to be like this great car. Although I was trying to find the car automotive enthusiasm in owning that car, which was that it was kind of a mechanical marvel. And it was also kind of a political statement at the time as well.
Yeah.
But it was also like quirky and different. And so the Saab, there is a path that you could draw from the Saab to the Prius. Because it was a weird, quirky car. And the Protege was the same thing. Because I wanted something that was, if I had to have a brand new, like, economy car of some kind, I wanted something that wasn't like a Corolla. Because my dad he said, we're getting you a Corolla because it's reliable. I'm like, I'm not driving a Corolla. I don't want a Corolla. So that's how we ended up with the Mazda, the Protege.
Yeah, Protege 5 is like, it's like not only, it's like the coolest like entry-level Japanese car, like, within like 10 years in either direction. You know, I can't really think of anything else where it's like, oh, that was like a cool version.
It was.
You know, it wasn't like the top version. It was just like kind of middle, but it had its own thing going on.
It did. Like, it was different too, because it wasn't like it was a hatchback technically, but it was basically also a wagon. And like it honestly, like all the details inside, like the golf ball shifter and just the way that it was designed. I mean, it's still to this day, of course, Mazda is like a notch above like their equivalents in just this restrained yet like kind of exciting design.
But it's weird is that, like you said, it didn't age well, and like it's the same era as the Sport Cross, and I think the Sport Cross looks really good today.
Yeah, and you know what? They like they're kind of the same in a way, like from a body standpoint. Like it's this kind of truncated wagon.
I mean, like on paper, but I don't know. I think the Sport Cross was a little more like future proof in that just the way it was styled.
I agree, yeah, because it's more conservatively styled for one. Like I think what didn't age as well on the Protege 5 was that the D pillar is curved. And it's just that we were pointing this out the other day when we were talking about the E36 Touring that was Europe only. And how it does not look good. And the same thing with the W202 Mercedes C-Class, the mid-90s. That might be the wrong one. But, but that one also, like, that was of the era, like the E-Class, the 124 at the time. It looked amazing, like, and it had all, like, it was so angular, including the D pillar. But for some reason, with the C-Class version, they gave it a curved D pillar, and it just instantly, like, it made it look cheap. I don't know why. I mean, I'm sure it gave it more interior volume, but
on the Sport Cross versus Protege 5 thing, I think I don't disagree. I think the Protege 5, I think of it as more conservative because it was boxier, because it was like a boxier car. But I think, like, I think the Sport Cross looks relevant today because it, like, the lines are very much like the best like crossovers of today. Like as far as, you know, like from the waist up, it looks like a relatively sleek like crossover.
Yeah, well, I'd agree with that. Yeah, it has a straight roof line, and then it has a belt line that subtly rises from head to tail.
And a very like angular D pillar and everything.
And the angular D pillar, I think, is really important for the timelessness.
Yeah,
like it's
because my next door neighbor has. I've talked about this to you. My next door neighbor has like a late 2000s RX 330. I think
the first one or the second gen.
The second gen RX.
So 330. Yeah.
Yeah, and so when I drive down the street and I see the Sport Cross in my driveway and this RX 330 in like a slightly different silver down the next driveway, it's like seeing double if you don't look below the belt line.
Yeah. Oh, totally. No, I agree. Like the Sport Cross is, I think it's a timeless design. Like I think it's very period specific. But
What
It
is that?
ages well.
It's timeless, but period specific.
It's
That, like,
timeless. I mean, it's
means
just like the
nothing.
vintage furniture I own. I don't own anything retro. I own like timeless pieces, but it looks
Okay,
like it's
okay.
of an era.
Okay, that's a good explanation. I called bullshit, but
There you
you
go. So,
put me in my place once again.
yes. So, anyways, yeah. The
Oh,
summary
I was gonna
is
say the mileage. I think the mileage on my Probe GT. I think it was definitely 79,000 when I got it,
mm,
and I think which means it was like 4 years old with like 80,000 miles. So that's
Yeah.
like 20,000 a year. But I think I got rid of it at like 155, and it had
Whoa.
such an unceremonious death because I used it all through college,
Yeah.
and then I moved to New York, and it stayed at my parents' house, and I drove it like the first Christmas back. I came home for like a week for Christmas,
Yeah.
and I drove it all around, visited my friends and stuff. And I guess like after that, my parents tried to move it, and they couldn't even. Like I think the clutch ate itself at like, and I think this was at like 155,000 or so, or 149 or something, and they just donated the car. And like you and I checked the Carfax in the past year, and I think it just died.
It was totaled, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, it did not go beyond that date very much, which was sad. But you know, what can you do?
Yeah,
What can you do?
and I didn't have the VIN for. I lost the VIN for the Saab. I'm super curious
I
about
asked
that.
my mom for the VIN, and she was able to find it. I was like, oh, that's
amazing!
awesome.
Oh, I should do
Yeah.
that. Maybe my parents have like old insurance papers or something.
Mm-hmm.
That'd be great to find. I still have the original Auto Trader ad that I found the Saab. Somewhere.
Whoa.
I think it's at my parents' house. I framed it.
Oh God, that's nerdy. So the last like 2 years I had the Probe, like the AC didn't work because I had a friend who was a technician at Ford, and it was a Ford Mazda dealer, and he took the car and looked at it, and he was like, yeah, he's like, you need like a new like something like all the parts were like. You know, you think about a lot of these like V6 transverse cars from the 90s, like, you know, and it's like they're really hard to work on because it's so tight in there. And it sucks. And like no one likes working on them. So the labor was kind of expensive. And I think a lot of the parts were like specialized, like it was like a Denso like AC condenser that was like $500 or $600 without labor. So I didn't ever fix the AC. And the last summer of of college, I graduated in like 4 years and 1 summer. So not 4.5 years, but like my last summer there, my dad was extremely nice. Like he's extremely selfless and cool, and I'm never this non-selfish. And because my Probe did not have AC, he was like, you can like, we'll just trade cars. He's like, I go to work at like 7 a.m. I can drive your car like to work. It's not a big deal. So I took his 530 BMW to college. And like, you know, beat the shit out of it for a whole summer. I mean, not taking care of it. Like I took care of it, but I you know, like I would take it out on drives and you know, flog it and stuff.
That's funny because same thing happened to me. The AC in the Saab went out, and it went out right before. So I had visited home from Austin, and the AC went out, and I had to go back. So I drove back to Austin without AC in the middle of the summer, or summertime, which, like at the time, I was 17 and a complainer, and I just like thought it was the biggest hardship having to drive a car. Because my dad wanted me to drive his car up. Because I actually asked him if I could leave the car here, they take it to a repair shop, blah, blah, blah. Anyways, but I've done that multiple times now because the 911's AC has gone out multiple times now, including when we were doing to and fro and during the Hill Country Rally.
Mine was fine.
It was so hot the first year at least. This year, when it was like cloudy most of the time and cold, it didn't really matter. I had AC. Anyways, but I drove. So the following weekend, I drove down and I dropped off the car. My dad was going to take it to get repaired, so I borrowed his 850 Turbo, and I loved that car. and I of course hooned it as well.
Yeah.
Because the turbo lag is what's fun about this old Volvos. Like that car was like fast for the time. I mean, it was in auto. Well, you could only get the turbo in auto, but the turbo lag is what's fun. Like it could be the slowest car in the world, but like that moment when the boost hits, like it is suddenly the fastest car in the world.
Yeah.
Which is why those old Volvos are fun.
That's cool.
Anyway,
So I have like a really random story that like I've probably shared with you, but so in Waco where I went to college, there was there's a small airport. There's not a lot of twisty roads around there, but there was a small airport, and there was like a road that went around the airport. So if you can imagine a road that goes around a runway, it's got like some right angles, but like you've got a ton of visibility. So I would just kind of like go on aimless drives out there and then hit these corners like at 0.8 or whatever in any of my cars. In my car, but also when I had my dad's car, I would take it out there. And so the last summer I was in college, one of my good friends, her boyfriend lived in Oklahoma, and he came down to visit, and the three of us hung out, and he had a yellow 350Z.
Ooh.
And this was in 2006, and it was like a 2006.
Yeah.
And like when that car came out, I always wanted to test drive it, but also I knew that like as a 22-year-old, like they're not going to let me test drive it without like a deposit or something.
Yeah.
I always like, because I felt so like, I don't know, I can't explain it. I felt at the time in the year 2002 and 2003, I felt so betrayed. Like SUVs had killed all the good sports cars, and my generation just had like the Mustang and the Audi TT. Like there was nothing cool. Like the RX-7, the Z, the Supra, everything died in the 90s.
Yeah.
And in 2002, it seemed like it seemed so bleak. And then the Z came out, and I was like, and the Evo came out, and I was like, I want to drive these cars so bad, but I knew it'd be so hard to actually like do. So I had never driven one, but so I told this guy, his name was Jonathan, and I was like, let's go for a drive or whatever. I'll show you some like cool roads and stuff. I didn't ask to drive it or anything. I didn't expect to, but he offered, like, we went out to that airport road, and he offered to let me drive, and I like, it was, I mean, because like I said, it's like these right angle corners, there's a couple of them, and you've got all this visibility, so I would just kind of use all of the road, and like, it was fun. And when he went through, it was really bad. When he went through, it was like really embarrassing.
Was it a manual?
Like, it was a manual, and when he went through, he was like really clunky and slow, but like in a like herky jerky way, where it was like not even like, like he had the line right, but just didn't have the speed. Like he was just like slow and not smooth and not good.
I like that you were more brave with his car.
I absolutely was, because I was familiar with the road, but also like I had some competency, and like it was just funny. But he was like, oh yeah, I messed that up. I messed up the heel toe. I'm like, that is not what you messed up. You messed up you messed up the line and the braking point and everything, But I was like, no, it's fine. But that was such a thrill to like drive that car out on that road, because you don't get to drive interesting things. But that put the Z in like a good place in my heart for a long time.
When it came out, like I was a fan of the original Z, or the original 300ZX, and like I remember the Car and Driver cover for 350Z, because I mean the combination. Nowadays, it's hard to love the idea of the Z because it is now kind of a extremely old formula that they are still selling. But
okay, you're making me go into this. The 350 was so much better than the 370, and the 350 was like, so the MSRP on mine was not new. Mine was like 4 years old, but the MSRP was like 26
well, no,
grand
that's just
or
it.
Something.
I remember that from the original Car and Driver article. I mean, blown away that this with the 3.5 liter VQ, like it was. They stated that it was going to be 26. I didn't believe that it was actually going to be 26 when it was finally released, and it was like.
I think it might have been less. I don't know. Mine was like mid-tier. Like it was just below the track. It had an LSD.
Yeah.
So it was like the enthusiast one. They all had carbon drive shafts.
Yeah.
I liked that they were all the same engine, because the RX-8 had like the slow. Well, a lot of cars, you'd have like the bad engine and the good engine.
Yeah.
And it was just cool that they were all this engine.
Like that's, and Nissan's been again a car company that's hard to find admirants for nowadays, but back in the day, like even with the Maxima, the 4-door sports car, like it was a V6 standard. It was a underpowered V6, but it was still a V6 standard.
Do you remember when that Altima came out in like 2002? It debuted and it was 240 horsepower.
Oh yeah,
and that was
mind blowing,
insane. It was insane. That's like what the M3 had like a year before that.
I remember like having up until probably early mid 2000s had kind of a high adherence for appreciation for Nissan.
That Altima looked good too. I liked that.
It did look good. Like it was futuristic. I mean, might have been, I'm sure, cheapish feeling, but like even the G35. The G35 was great. Like,
oh my god,
what G35 a great was like packaging exercise, and like the amount of car that you got versus like a 3 Series at the time, or a Mercedes, etc. Like, you got like an enthusiast spec car. I liked the sound of the VQ then. I don't now as a mature adult. I find the drone to be stupid, but
yeah, it was a proper platform. It was a good platform, and you got like the Brembos and everything, and you could not get. I mean, there was a lot of competition. You could not get a good platform. Thinking Acura, I'm thinking,
No, like, can you imagine? Like, when we think about it now, like, man, Nissan was really hitting the enthusiast mark, like, really well across the board.
That's like when Carlos Ghosn came in.
Yeah.
Like, he was responsible for a lot of that stuff. Like, he turned it around. He was like, "We're not going to do the Z unless it's profitable. We're not going to do GTR unless it's profitable." And they did it in an effective way. The 350, like, I think the 350 was better than the 370, like, aesthetically.
Yeah.
But
I drove our mutual acquaintance's 370Z. It's the only 370 I've ever driven. I was underwhelmed by it. I mean, it was quick, but like it was I didn't enjoy the driving position. I didn't enjoy like the way things felt. The clutch was weird as hell. Although I understand that to be
all of those are carryover from the 350. Yeah. All of those things that you're complaining about, those were on the 350 as well.
That car was far more expensive than the original 350 or the 350Z, not the original.
Yeah, totally.
I think he bought it brand new for 32 or 34 or something like that. And his was not even like, he had the standard double din, like it looked like an aftermarket radio, but it was the stock radio, cloth seats. Like the only thing he had was the I guess it would have been the sport, whatever the equivalent of the sport package was, with the big wheels, the spoiler, and
did it have the brakes?
Had the brakes.
So here's the thing. Also, is that the 350 had Brembo. They had a Brembo partnership, and then on the 370 they went to like Akebono, which was still okay, but not as cool.
You know what's weird is that like I just realized the hypocrisy slightly in what I just said there, because I just listed out like an enthusiast spec, like base package car basically, but with all the good bits. But for some reason on 370, it never sat well. Like it was kind of asynchronous for me. Like it felt like for that amount of money, it should have been a nicer feeling car. But I'd gladly have cloth seats in a 911 or an M3 or anything like that. But for some reason on the 370, it just didn't seem like as good a value as when it was $6,000.
No, exactly. I get it, especially like because those core things were just kind of a little off. And I spent time. I had a loaner Nismo 370Z.
Yeah.
And I drove it like to Dallas and back, and it just never was like, it never felt great. It never was ideal.
Do you recall? So the current day, because it's still the same 370, what is the MSRP of a 370Z?
So like the base price. Oof. I'll say 34.5.
Okay. It is $29,900, which
Okay.
You know what? That's
Fair.
actually reasonable. I think it's
Yeah.
gone down in price, maybe, or maybe it's the same exact price. But
Or maybe the dealers just always stock it with like bigger wheels and
yeah,
right at 34 or something.
and if you ignore the fact that it was released in '08, or it was in '09, I guess. But I mean, if you compare that to like a BRZ, I know that people have done these comparisons already, but like that's not far off. Like those are two very probably at this point underbought but underrated cars as well. I mean, I'm sure the 370 is fine, but you just there's so many options now. And also, like, why buy a brand new one when you can buy the same car
Yeah,
like for
totally.
like half the price?
So when I got mine at the dealer, it was pre-owned at the Nissan dealer, and there was like a 40th anniversary. Like I think they just had a 50th anniversary Z, but they had a 40th generation Z, and it was like gray with like red calipers,
Yeah.
and it was the MSRP was something like $67,000 in 2009.
That's insane. And can you imagine
It was crazy.
having two generations? So with
Two
the current,
decade anniversaries.
with the same model.
Yeah.
So they're gonna have like it's already 10 plus years old now. So that is insane. I don't even think they're commemorating. I think they're hoping that automotive journalists will ignore the fact that it is so old right now.
Yeah.
But I guess
Yeah, I mean, it's like you said. Like, I've repeated this to everyone that knows me, but like I had an NC press car for 2 weeks,
Yeah.
and I got back into my Z. I was like, I can't drive this anymore. Like the ergonomics were so poor.
Yeah.
And I didn't care that I had twice as much horsepower because I was like, the ergonomics were just so wrong feeling.
Yeah.
And like, it doesn't matter like what a deal or how much power or what they can pack into the 370. Like the ergonomics are just wrong in a fundamental way that they need to correct on the next generation.
I just think like if you were ever in the market for that car again today and you didn't track it, or even if you did, I think a G35 would be a better proposition because it's probably a better day-to-day car to live with. And I mean, it's a little bit slower, obviously heavier.
I don't know if there's a difference day to day.
Really? I think that, well, I've driven
I've
driven actually more G35s than I've driven 350s. In fact, I don't think I've ever driven at 350, but I actually found the G35 to be comfortable. I mean, it's the same visibility, but the seats were better. You could adjust. I didn't enjoy the binnacle moving with the steering wheel. I mean, it's neat to see it happening, but like you just couldn't align things. For me, at least, I couldn't align things the way I wanted.
Oh, it worked for me, but I am this tall to enter
Whatever.
the ride.
Anyways, but even like hindsight too, like the G35 was really just a nicer Nissan. Like,
Yeah.
I remember sitting in that car, when that car was past its prime, and thinking like this was a competitor to a 3 Series at the time, and once the value's out the door, like you start to realize that there are compromises. Like say for instance in build quality, like if you're sitting in the back seat, you have a great view of the zippers that are used to complete the upholstery on the leather. And they're just there. Like the sides are zippers, and you can see the
Is this on the coupe or the sedan?
This is on sedan.
Okay.
On the coupe, I think what might have been the same. The coupe, I think, or maybe not. I don't recall. But at any rate, it drove fine, I guess. But
I mean, I think the 350 drove better.
Yeah.
Probably.
But so, like then, if you're buying a brand new car, it was a better proposition than if you were buying it as a used car. As a used car, all day long, I don't even think they're more reliable. Like Nissans, I think are bottom of the barrel when it comes to reliability of the Japanese brands.
I agree.
Yeah.
Sadly.
So you're not getting any better proposition by it now. $10,000, say for instance, if you're to choose between a 370, a G37, or a 350 even, versus an E46 or I guess you could do like a Mercedes C-Class of some kind, an AMG, maybe, like a C55 or something like that. All day long, go with the German cars. Like,
Yeah.
you would just get so much more satisfaction out of owning that, maintaining that.
Okay. Let's go to the next question so I don't have to cut out so much.
Fine.
You've got here, what is your favorite S-Class generation? I don't know enough to answer this.
Did I write that?
Yeah.
I thought you wrote that.
Maybe I did.
I think you did.
Did I?
Why did you write this?
I don't know, but let's take it from the top.
I did write this.
Fuck you.
I don't know why I wrote this.
I don't know.
We can skip this one. Although
I want to answer. Let's
Okay.
just off the cuff.
right.
The cuff.
off the cuff,
I'm pounding the table.
my favorite. Okay, but I do actually have it. So I've never owned a Mercedes, and it's the one German brand that I haven't owned, and I would like to own one. It'd have to be vintage though, because. Oh, side note. I accidentally convinced someone else to join the Land Cruiser Club, and he's selling his E63 AMG wagon to do it. Which
Okay. Why didn't you get a V10 Touareg?
I have not successfully convinced someone to jump off that cliff yet. So, but if anyone's looking for an E63 wagon in Houston, I've got a lead. Anyways. My favorite S-Class generation, that's easy. It's the W124. I think that was the first and last generation for me. Like, that was the icon, and following that, like, the big one, the
Wait.
Huh.
So the W126 came before the 124?
Yeah, I don't know what to tell you. Well, the 124 is a E-Class.
Oh, it is.
Get your fucking...
What have I have on here? Okay, I don't know.
Your thing's right here. So, to me, that was like prime Mercedes era. 126 is also like the icon S-Class. The 140, the big one after that, is like a sub-icon or a secondary icon of sorts, but I don't think it's as attractive. And like at the time, like I also think of like the AMG variants as part of like how you define like how good that generation was. And I think like the AMG, and they were an external like tuning house at the time, but the AMG 126s looked amazing. Like it's this perfect low profile, long, like aggressive looking thing. I mean, in standard form or AMG. Same thing with the two-door. Also, you can judge the generation by how it looks as a two-door, because the SEC looked amazing compared to the CL, I guess. Not the CL. What am I thinking of? I don't know. It was an SEC too, I guess. The big S-Class after that. The CL didn't come until the 220, I think, generation.
Yeah, you're correct. My favorite, I kind of have to compromise. I think the W126.
Yeah.
Which was 79 to 91, because I like the look of newer ones, but I really liked the drive of when I drove that 79 on Turo.
You had the 116.
I did.
Yeah.
I'm saying this is a compromise.
Oh, yeah.
I think this looks better than the 116, but I bet it feels similar.
Maybe.
And
I mean, like, I will say, from a driving standpoint, I've driven a couple, and they are... it's just a big, slow, floaty machine.
But that's what I want. Like that's what I liked about the 116. And this is just like a little bit pointier and a little bit sharper.
It's just
like that's what I like about it.
It's smoother, like a seal.
Yeah, no, that's what I like. That's what I want.
Yeah.
My second favorite is I like the facelift W220. I like those.
I don't hate those. It's like the AMG variants only because
right. Yeah, that was to be understood.
Yeah, because everything. I mean, it looks like it suffers from like early 2000s like blobby, optimistic blob design.
Blobtimistic.
Blobtimistic, if you will.
Let's just call this episode Blobtimism.
Yeah, Blobtimism.
Yeah.
That is good, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, and then after that, the 221 I didn't enjoy looking at much. And the
That's
current
like
day
the 06?
Yeah. The current day one, the 222, is...
Yes.
You know what? I mean, it's fine. It's unoffensive, is what I'll call it.
I like it. I mean, I've never driven a current one, but it does seem to be like a massive...
You drove the coupe.
Yes. Okay. Yes, I have. I feel like the current one was like a massive breakthrough on like interior quality and just like going for the moon.
Yeah.
And I saw on TC Jester, I saw like a Maybach current one, which is pretty cool.
I like those better than the original Maybach, or not the original Maybach,
me
but
too.
the reimagined Maybach.
Yeah. Same. Okay. Well, I think we covered that topic.
Fine.
Come on. All right. What do you got next?
Sure, we can either do listener questions or we can talk about our broken cars.
We don't have enough listener questions. I kind of talked about my broken cars.
You can talk about we have not. Okay, so you and I have attempted to embark on. Well, you've done a couple of things to this, or the SC that works either way, Sport Cross or Super Carrera.
They're both 3 liters.
Yeah. So you helped me remove the running boards on my LX, and it has transformed that car because it looked like a conversion van before, and like now it looks like I mean, I know it's my car, so I have to love it, and I do. It looks like a taut, like off-roader. Like we didn't do anything. Like the suspension is the same, so it's not lifted, but it looks like it's like 3 inches higher.
That's cool.
We got rid of 3 inches of like plastic.
My neck was so sore the next like 2 days because of like all the like kind of craning.
Oh yeah, we were both under the car, and this is the first car I've ever been able to get under without having it on a ramp of some kind. So I just set the suspension setting to high, and we just slid under there, and we're unbolting these like 14-year-old bolts that have been encrusted in like dirt and mud and rocks and whatnot. And so as we're unbolting this stuff, we're just being showered with like detritus. It was not enjoyable. But since the car is so wide, we were at least 6 feet apart underneath the cars because we were each doing a side. But if you ever get a 100 series or a Land Cruiser of any kind, remove the running boards because it transforms it. And we added the
and you had the mud flaps.
I have because
so
once you remove
normally
it,
there's these factory mud flaps on the rear tires, but normally they are kind of built into the running board. So you remove the running board, you have no mud flap. Chris bought all in like new factory plastic the running boards, and it looked good. They look nice.
The mud flaps.
Mud flaps, sorry.
But yeah, no, the mud flaps were because I needed the symmetry. It would be weird to have like just 2 rear ones. I mean, it looks great. Like I actually love the way this truck looks right now.
It's good. I see them on the road, and I think, it looks good.
Yeah, like it. Honestly, I would consider this a timeless design. Like there was a period, I think, when it first came out, where people's minds were transitioning from the 80 series to this 100 series, and like the 80 series, also iconic. I actually prefer the look of the 80 series, but I didn't like this when they first came out. I thought they were too like puffy and bloated looking, and it's funny
Luckily,
how
they came up with a lot of puffier, bloatier ones.
they came
after.
with the distraction. So yeah, the 200 series came out, which is even puffier. So this now looks like slim, even though
the headlights are cool though. Like the headlights, I like the look kind of better than the Land Cruiser headlights.
You know what? It's funny because I didn't think that when it first came out, and now I do. I think it looks better.
Yeah.
Like it looks more modern. And I just learned too that in Japan, this is so they have both the Land Cruiser and the LX, but the LX, because Lexus was not around when this car came out, they just dubbed it, because the Japan market is so weird. They have the same car and multiple variants. This is called the Land Cruiser Cygnus over there.
Whoa.
So it's an LX. So you could spend more money on an LX or like another Land Cruiser. It looks exactly the same. You get the same options on the Land Cruiser as you could on the Cygnus Land Cruiser. I don't know. Japan is such a weird.
That's so funny.
Market, but anyways, yeah. So I'm so happy with the car.
That's awesome.
I honestly can't wait. I don't know how long I'm going to keep the truck because my attention span is so short. But
no, you should keep this for a long time. You're not going to find another.
I've already, like, in the short ownership, I put a lot of work into it already, and so I should keep it and just enjoy the maintenance done on it.
Also, this doesn't cause you stress. Like, you don't have to worry about parking it outside, parking it on the street, or whatever.
I tell you, like, this car has 230,000 miles on it, and the engine is drier externally than any of the German cars I've owned. Like,
oh yeah,
and that's insane. And those cars had under 100,000. Well, not the Carrera. Carrera has 150 on it, but it's just, this car is just so well engineered. Like, it is 230,000 miles and rattle free. It rides like new. It's on the original hydraulic suspension, which is, again, astonishing.
That's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
Well, my Mini had a control arm bushing, which was filled with fluid, fail at 60,000 miles.
Oh, so that was the oil leak.
That was the oil leak.
It was.
Do you want to? Can I tell you more about that? Can I tell you about this?
Yeah.
So I took it to Momentum Mini and had a terrible experience.
Calling
and
out.
Yeah, I will.
Business.
Well, so they actually sent me like an email, like, leave us a review.
They forwarded that to me. Are you screen capped that?
Well, they sent another one today.
Oh my god.
They said send it, like, leave us a review at cars.com now, and I was like, okay,
if you want. Yeah.
Can I just read my review?
Oh, you left a review. Okay.
I left a review, and I'll just read it, and this will, like, save me. This will be, like, more articulate than all my other discussions, because I will just read what I wrote in a articulate way.
Please tell me what you said to the manager.
Hey, the manager asked. That's the thing. I'm not a Karen. I'm a Kevin. Manager asked. All right, here we go. Yes. I'm cutting this out, by the way.
No.
After 7 years of bringing my car to Momentum for service after purchase, I will be taking it somewhere else from now on. The experience on my most recent visit in the new location was cold, impersonal, and I found it impossible to reach anyone. There's 3 more paragraphs.
Oh my god.
The drop-off experience was aggravating. They didn't want to know why I was dropping off the car. Instead, they would call to find out later. A few days after that call, I received a text message link to an automated web form showing what they found and what services they recommend. The estimate seemed kind of outrageous for a suspension bushing, but I wanted to find out more from the service writer to see if there was an explanation I was missing. Unfortunately, despite my efforts, I was never able to speak to my service writer about the estimate. I eventually gave up and used the automated web form to decline all the work they recommended, so they knew that I was ready to pick up my car. At least that was easy. Every person in the dealership that I interacted with seemed like I was inconveniencing them, which is not great for premium, air quotes, service at a premium price. I never felt like the car was in good hands, and it's discouraging to think that if there was an issue with the repair, or even if something happened while the car was in their care, my only recourse would be dead-end phone trees and unreturned voicemails.
My God.
That was it. Yeah. I got that at like 7 a.m. and I was like, oh, I'm fired up.
Yeah, you sure are. I'm going to find that review. I'm going to just type in LOL as a response. All right, Kevin.
Yeah. Oh, wait. So can I tell you, I took it to another place.
Yeah.
And
Not as...
I think the person there might be racist.
You didn't know you said that, and you did not.
I told you I would tell you on the
expand.
pod. I told you I would tell you on the pod.
Tell me on the pod. What was the situation?
Okay.
Let's call out racists. Honestly, this is the time. Like,
this is the time. So I come into the dealership, or not dealership. I come into the independent mechanic to pick up the car. So I had just dropped basically the same amount of money that I just called outrageous. Mm-hmm. Anyway, it's fine. So I pick it up, and I ask the date on as I'm signing the paperwork. I say, "What's the date?" It was June 18th. He said that was Juneteenth, which was not, but it was one day off. So I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. He's like, "You know what day this is, right?" And I go, "No," and he goes, "It's Juneteenth," and I'm like, "Yeah," and he goes. And he's like, yeah, we used to, celebrate this. Like, we grew up celebrating this, and now we're not allowed to celebrate it. Now only people of color can celebrate it.
Oh, my God.
And I was like, I don't think that's true. I was like, I'm not sure. He's like, and I was like, I only learned about it in the last few years, but I feel like it's been a lot more talked about. It's a lot more discussed now. I think it's okay. And he's like, oh, where did you grow up? And I said, well, I went to like intermediate school in North Carolina. He's like, oh, well, it's a Texas thing. And I was like, I think it's national. I think it's understood to be national because I know that Juneteenth. So Juneteenth, to clarify, everyone knows if you're listening to this, but it signifies the slaves finding out. This was after the emancipation, but they found out in Texas that they were free.
Yeah.
No one had told them.
No one had told them.
They found out it was free, so it was like true independence. Like this was truly like the beginning of
and it happened
national freedom.
Galveston, which is essentially Houston adjacent.
Yeah. So he was pro Juneteenth, but anti, I guess, PC culture, not allowing him to celebrate it, which is also made up.
I have so many questions that will be unanswered because he is not before us, but
I chose to not ask any questions because I would like to preserve my ability to go to this place.
Because I don't understand. I just don't understand. Like,
I don't know. I know. I should have asked more questions.
Oh my goodness.
It's terrible.
Yeah, that sounds like it is the start of a problematic discussion. Certainly, should you have engaged.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
Still the second worst experience I had dealing with mini service on this single repair. Yeah. But yes.
Yeah. Dear God. Meanwhile, I've been recommending a mini place to you, and you refuse.
What place?
Silvio's. They they're European generalists, I guess, but
this is like British car generalists.
It's a German car. It's a Mini. It's a modern Mini.
It was made in Britain.
Oh my
by
God.
Germans.
Anyways, if you decide that it's not okay to take it back to a racist,
okay.
I suggest you take it to Silvio's because they can do like normal. They're good at normal service, so they service the 330 well enough. I took the 328 wagon to other places, but
I will do that.
Try it out, and they're reasonable. So, and here's the thing: you know how you're considering that phone service. Text message invoices are impersonal.
No, I'm saying when you can't actually get a hold of the person.
Well, just hang on. Like Silvio's is the type of place where they still handwrite the entire invoice.
Oh yeah, that's
It's
how I like it.
insane. So
Yeah.
I love that. So Silvio retired. He had so they don't service Porsches, and I only say that because I took they came in there once, and all I needed I wanted them to do something like really simple to it. I forget what it was, but they declined it. But I ended up talking to Silvio, the namesake of the company, and he's since retired and sold it to I think the manager, the shop manager.
Titular line.
Yeah, but
Sylvia.
his like before he retired, this is like 2015. He was getting his retirement car ready, which was a 930 that he had bought for $15,000 back in the early 90s, and he had been slowly restoring it over time, and like he had like upgraded the turbo. He basically hot rodded the whole thing.
Wow,
And it was
I remember
really
seeing it
cool.
out there.
Yeah, it was really
Yeah.
cool. So I don't know what's become of Silvio and his 930, but like I enjoyed that. He was just like this. He was so cantankerous, and I remember showing up late once, and he yelled at me. he said, "You're 30 minutes late. Like, you will have to come back another day."
You live like 3 minutes away.
Whatever. Anyways, I appreciated that, and he also wore a vintage Rolex. It was a 14060, which is a no date sub.
Cutting this out.
Which I
I'm cutting
appreciated
this
because he worked. He like
Okay,
did
yeah.
work with this watch on, which was kind of amazing too.
Okay, so we got some so new IS, not new. New Lexus IS.
Not new,
Yeah.
and it looks. I am so conflicted about this because I would argue that the original IS, your IS,
Yeah.
is good because it was this non-confrontational design. Like it was unoffensive, yet aggressive enough because it was wide.
Yeah, I think it
boy
was
racery.
here's the thing. I think there's a very distinction. I think the styling was inoffensive, but I think the proportion, the design,
Yeah.
like the form was aggressive.
It
the
was
form was. I think
honestly,
the form was very.
but it was a three. Like it, I think.
Also,
What?
you say it like you're setting it up like it was conservative. It invented Altezza taillights. It invented a kind of
did.
taillight.
You're saying that
which
as a good
plague us.
thing.
I'm saying it was a radical thing.
I realize that is 35% of eBay's income
I'm saying
now.
it was a radical thing.
Altezza taillights. I hated them at the time.
Well,
And I still do, except on the Sport Cross. I think it does work well there. But yes, it revolutionized like taillight design. You no longer just had to have the like diffused geometric whatever lens in the back. You could now do a clear with like layers, I guess. Whatever.
Yeah.
But the current one, again, not offensive.
So by current one, you mean 2013 to now?
Yeah. So
No,
the,
I'm
the
not
newly-
saying that
no, no, no.
discouraging. I'm not. I.
Here's the
think-
thing. It's a handsome car.
I think people do find it offensive because the grill is like big and stuff. But I think it's.
I actually don't think that it's offensive in that way at all. In fact, I think it should be offensive like that. Like, I think that I kind of wish that they had gone more Lexus-y with it.
Did you get like a new headphone mic thing?
What? No. I just clipped. You're going to hear a lot of
okay.
like banging around with this because I clipped it to the wrong place. But
I'm used to it.
here we are. Anyways, I think they should have gone more Lexus with it, like more LX, GX, LS with it. Instead, I feel like it's just a big Corolla or a small GS, but instead,
Or a four-door last gen TC.
yeah, which I think it's a handsome car, but it's not. It's so generic. And
Yeah, it was like decent proportions, but very boring.
you sent me a pic of an ISF the other day.
Yes.
And I had to look for a second to realize, like, think about what you were sending me. I was like, oh, what, an IS? And then I realized, oh, it's an ISF. And that's part of the problem is that, like, that car was so conservatively styled that
Yeah.
even the aggressive version is conservative to a point where like I didn't know that this was the performance one.
Yeah.
And that's a problem. Like, I just feel like this current one has like reined in on what made the IS a little bit different, which was that it was kind of crazy. It was, I mean, like the IS, maybe it's because like it's the same thing with the 3 Series. It's not, even when like it was crazy Bangle years, like the 3 Series, like the E90 was not wild. Like, it was the most conservative of the Bangle designs, probably because it was the bread and butter. And maybe the IS is the same way. They're trying to keep it bread and butter and not offend anyone.
But it should be the most wild because it's like the one that's going to be bought by like young people.
And I think that should be the strategy. But instead, they've gone conservative with it. So yeah, it's
there's some
unoffensive.
cool surfacing. So the new one, there's some cool surfacing things.
It looks wide. It's kind of got boxy flares.
No, I mean, but it's like, I don't know. The big story is that it is the same hard points. It's the same as the old car. The interior is almost exactly the same.
It's somehow worse because they've introduced like more color combinations, which is not ideal. But it's fine. Again, but here's the thing: like all cars of that ilk are kind of the same proposal now. Like, if you're spending that amount of money, all these cars are going to drive essentially the same. Like, unless you're buying a performance variant of any of these things, like, it's not going to matter. And even with the performance variants, and we were talking about this because we were recently reading and discussing the reviews, also presented by friends in publications of the new 3 Series. Or not the new 3 Series, the 340i. So yeah, but with the new, and how like so we were talking about this yesterday, and I have a revision to my statement.
Sure.
Because I couldn't quite articulate the issue, because objectively, good car, goes fast, handles well, granted, almost 4,000 pounds, which, by the way, edges kind of close to like the weight of my car. I mean, my car is closer to 3 tons, I think. But here's the thing: is that I was talking about it yesterday as a simulacra of what BMW used to be. The new 3 Series, positive reviews, all this and that. Of course, it's going to be a good car because they can program it to be a good car. Like, that's the whole thing. But the essence is lost because part of the enjoyment, at least from a mental standpoint, from an automotive enthusiast standpoint, was that it was a simple car previously, like the formula, rear-wheel drive, 50-50 weight distribution, inline 6, like it was a simple formula. And so it doesn't matter what the car is now. They can just dial it in with programming, and they can kind of simulate the feel of the old car, steering aside. And that is problematic just from, I mean, that's fine. The car will sell, people will enjoy the car, but like, you can't admire it in the same way anymore.
I think it's just a very hateful machine.
Yeah.
I just hate it. I mean, it looks like what the designers intended, which is it does not want to be a BMW. It is kicking and screaming into having some BMW traits. It's garbage.
Here's
it's
the thing:
trash.
is that like it's gonna eventually it's gonna inherit the 4 Series grille or the M4 grille.
I had to tweet about this, but like, honestly, have you ever seen like a marketing decision as bad as taking the name M3 and saying we're going to throw that away?
Yeah,
like honestly,
we had to talk about this too.
Like, no, but I mean, we texted briefly, but honestly, like the 2013 idea of we're going to the M4, which still sounds awkward 6 years later, like it's so dumb. It's like if Porsche went, I know you guys like the 911. We're still going to offer it as the shitty one.
We're going to change 811.
We're going to have a 4-door sedan called the 911, and now we're going 812.
Yeah.
What do you think of that? Like, It's
I
so
agree.
dumb. Like, no one would do this. M4 is awkward as
But
hell, and
I agree.
M3 is iconic.
And that's why, like, you look at BMW versus Porsche, say, for instance, and Porsche, they were late to the game still on recognizing the importance of their heritage and the cash cow that their heritage is. And BMW looks at that, recognizes that there is heritage, and then chooses to spit upon it and just disregard it completely.
Yeah.
Like, it's astonishing because they want to be a volume player, and it shows so hard. Like, the BMW buyer of, I mean, no, okay. I was going to make an argument against the yesteryear BMW buyer and the today BMW buyer. Here's the thing: they're the same people when you think about it from a yuppie like perspective.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, like, it is the trendy thing to buy. It is in badge only. It is the thing du jour. And the only thing is that, like, back in the day, in the 90s, in the early 2000s, automotive enthusiasts could have also kind of hitched onto that wagon for as much of the ride as possible because they were still good cars, despite it being like this badge item, this luxury mark symbol. But now it's just a symbol. It's all it is. Like, they've lost the thing. Like,
can I interrupt?
Go on.
BMW has at times recognized their heritage, and that's why we've seen like a nameplate like 328 over and over again. And here's the thing. I had this argument with Daniel. No, I know. Here's the thing.
Yeah.
I understand that that having displacement-based names is not realistic. Let's just say it's not
especially
realistic.
nowadays.
Let's accept that.
Fine.
That. I think it's stupid, but
because everything would be you could
say everything should be this name. Like, the lower one is this name, and the higher one is this name. And 328 is iconic, and it goes back to history. It goes back to like the 30s. I get that, but you're always going to have some marketing dipshit who's like, yeah, but we had 335. What if we had 340? Like, you're always going to have some marketing asshole that says we need to increase it for the facelift or whatever. And, like, you end up with 340, which is a stupid name that's both inaccurate and has no history. Like, it's just an awful name. It's just bad. Like, if they had 335 or 330 and it didn't represent the displacement, but it was like, oh, well, it makes sense in the history, but 340 just sucks in every regard.
Trapped in its history, and it's unfortunate because, like,
luckily they're burning that. They're slashing and burning the whole history.
Well, they are, because now nothing means anything with the numericals. But, like, yeah, I mean, like, they can't switch to, like, non-numerical names now, so they're just going to go with random numbers.
I think they should have, like, 3 series and then some, like, descriptor maybe.
Here's the thing, like, I was going to use Volvo as an example, except that'd be inaccurate too. I was going to say, like, Volvo has transitioned into, like, the 3 numbers into the, like, S60, S40, S blah, blah, blah. But that's inaccurate because they also kind of, nothing means anything anymore. Because 740 used to mean 4-cylinder, and 760 meant 6-cylinder. Then it also had a 5-cylinder. I don't know. Anyways, it doesn't matter. Actually, wait. I'm all wrong with this because, I'm going off on a tangent here.
I'm cutting this out.
Because you have been on a Volvo just tear lately. Tearing it down unjustly.
No, I have no interest.
Here's
They're
the
not
thing.
as quirky
Actually,
as
I'm
Saabs.
wrong. Here, wait, I'm wrong. 740 did mean 4-cylinder. 760 meant 6-cylinder. 850 was a 5-cylinder, naturally aspirated. You know what? That's true. Well, I mean, I guess there's S60 now and S70 and S90. It's not a 9-cylinder situation, but it's all the same 4- or 6-cylinder thing. It doesn't matter. Look, cars don't matter anymore.
No, they don't.
We're all buying the same thing, just like reprogrammed.
But if you're gonna
perform
pick, if you
differently.
could pick a name, if you could pick any name, why would you pick 340? It's so stupid. But it's because like there was 335 before, and it's like, oh, we can make it better. Like, how do we show it's better because it has new headlights? Oh, we call it
Higher
340.
number.
We
Yeah.
call it 340, and it's just like it's so stupid.
No, I do hate that. And I hate that they revived the 330 name for the base model because the 330
Yeah.
used to be the good model.
Yeah.
And
Like 328. I know I said this before. 328 goes back to like the 30s.
yeah.
Like it has a real heritage. So I
iconic.
understand if they keep that, even without the displacement. But 340 has nothing. It's just trash.
I know.
340 is disposable in
know.
every iteration.
No. Well, and we recognize this truly now that BMW is just a marketing machine. Like, sorry about that.
Can I mention the most incompetent marketing machine I've ever seen?
Yes.
Because they threw away the name M3, which is like one of the great names. And I would say, disagree with me here. I think M3 is the most evocative nameplate in the entire BMW family.
I agree.
Like, and they pissed it away. They pissed it away.
M3, and then secondary to that, M5, and then all the other ones are just like throwaways. Like, I agree. And I love the marketing thought that what if we had an M4? Like, and suddenly it's one better. Except that it has no history, it doesn't mean anything. Like, it is
It's
a
an awkward
victim.
number.
It's
an
a
awkward
victim
number.
to the coupe situation that they have going on. That
Which
coupes have
benefits
to be
no one
even
because
numbers.
you can also get an even numbered 4-door. lots of them.
And here's the thing. So you and I have talked about this countlessly because it is a curmudgeonly thing to not accept like the way that cars are doing things nowadays. Because you read any modern day piece of automotive journalism, you know, you can't shit on everything because
We can.
I mean, we can and we do. You can't shut on everything in the press because, like, you can't, like, pin a moment in time and say, oh, here we are. Because we argue this all the time in our group chats with multiple friends of multiple
Our listeners are getting
levels.
FOMO. We need a Patreon where we can be in the group chat with them.
Oh, my goodness. Here's the thing. Okay, we are aware. We are aware that we're curmudgeons in our opinions, and we are also aware that in order to determine a car to be good, a modern day car to be good, you have to shift your perspective of what a good car is in the year 2020. Like, from a video game perspective, what makes a good car? How much faster can you program it to be than the next car? Like, how much heavier and bigger can you make it? And also make it faster. Like, there is somehow now, I think people are reveling in the fact that a car can be 4,000 pounds, and no one cares about that. But they love that they can make 4,000 pounds go 0 to 60 in 3 seconds. Like, that is now part of, like, the spec sheet, I feel like, combination that makes people, like, titular. They are, like, what's the wrong word for it? But, like, people are enthused at this standpoint. Like, I don't understand this. Like, you know, the G-Wagon, say, for instance, like, making that car go fast, I don't think is the same proposition as making a modern day, like an X7 go fast. Like, I think
They all go fast.
they all go fast now, so it doesn't matter. You make
They're
any
all
car
the same.
fast.
They're
Yeah.
all the same.
So it's not disingenuous, but I do think that in order not to go mad, you have to, like, when someone says, like, I mean, we have many automotive journalist friends who have to write and evaluate these cars on a day-to-day basis, and I understand what a good car is now. I wish in private conversation people could at least admit, like, all cars are the same now. It doesn't matter. Like, all you're doing is describing programming. Like, you can make any car do anything you want nowadays. You want it to go 0 to 60 in 7 seconds? You want to make it to go 0 to 60 in 3 seconds? No problem. Just, like, redial, like, all the shit on you know, the ECU, and it will do whatever you want it to do. But instead, we have to admit that like a 2-liter 4 base model BMW that produces 200 horsepower is somehow different than the 300 horsepower equivalent, which uses the same engine. No, well, not actually. It uses the 6. It doesn't matter. Like
You're undermining yourself, but yes.
It doesn't matter. I'm just saying that like
nothing matters. Oh, I get it.
it doesn't matter. Like, how can we have like a truly nuanced conversation nowadays about cars in the differences in engineering when engineering is now no longer a matter of how clever you are, but just what numbers you punch into the computer.
Well, we had a good. We'll close with this. We had a good discussion with a couple of our friends who are auto journalists. We're talking about the Lexus LC 500, with beautiful coupe, naturally aspirated V8.
Yeah.
Its own thing. It's actually truly unique in its field. And one of our friends was very excited about like the F version. Like, oh, in a year or in 2 years, there's going to be a 4-liter twin turbo LC, and with hardcore aero and hardcore tuning. And it's like, that seems worse, because as a hardcore sports car, an LC is going to be worse than the AMG. It's going to be worse than the Aston Martin. It might be worse than the M8. It might be worse than lots of things. But as a NA coupe for luxury, for grand touring, it is completely unique, because the only Aston Martin is the hardcore twin turbo fast, like hard as nails one.
Yeah.
That only has one mode.
Yeah.
Like the LC is its own thing, and I don't want one that's exactly the same.
I don't either.
formula
I
as
think the LC is a
AMG
wonderful.
GT.
The original idea is perfect. Like, it needs to exist as that. I don't think it needs to have like an F version. Like, but
right, because if you make an F version, like, well, it's going to be worse than the GT3. I'd have the GT3.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, why would you not?
Boy, no, that car really does exist in its own world, like where it doesn't need to compete. Like, it is, because Lexus is always 2 steps behind from a marketing standpoint, but it is a step ahead when it comes to like confidence of what the product is. And doing that as an I mean, I'm sure it'll sell cars, and they really want to sell the F aspect of things. But like, Jesus, I think it's not gonna be like.
I'm not sure they do want to sell the F aspect, because there's not really. I think that GSF is either discontinued or will be.
Yeah. Well, the whole GS line is done for anyways. So
there's no. They still sell the RCF, and they did just have a recent facelift.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
I think you're drunk. All right. It is time to end this, because we're quite into this, over an hour. So
we're like at 2 hours.
Yeah. Well, season premiere.
Season 2, baby.
I know. All right. Well, thanks for listening, of course, to this introductory episode of season 2.
I'm not gonna do any edits.
Whatever. That's fine. Okay. I hope that you don't.
All right.
All right. Thanks for listening.
We'll see you next time. Follow us on Instagram. Yeah. Email us at new4spelledout96 @gmail.com, and see you next time.
See you next time. Goodbye. Bye.